Welcome to Season 2 of Next of Kin, the podcast. I'm your host Emma, a British expat who moved to Dubai to further my fashion career when a positive pregnancy test rocked my world. I was asked to choose between my career or my baby, so I realised I needed to pivot fast. And that's where Next of Kin came in. Last season you followed along as I muddled through my first year as a mum and starting my first business. Now I have a toddler, a brand, and this podcast. So join me this season as I jump into my Mumpreneur era and try to figure out whether we can really have it all. I recently came across Carina Harvey through her new podcast, All Things Identity, and I found the whole topic fascinating and really unique. The way that she can work with people as a coach who are going through a big life change that has left them feeling like they've lost themselves, and to then help build them back up and rediscover themselves through a huge variety of techniques, pulling on so much experience. I honestly find it fascinating. And although Carina isn't a mum herself, it occurred to me that every single mother goes through a huge shift hormonally, emotionally. I mean, it's called matrescence. There's a whole book on it and a TED Talk if you haven't heard the term. But I'm going off the point. All mums will tell you that motherhood changed them in some sort of way, and that there's that period of feeling like you lost the old you and you're still not quite sure, you're figuring yourself out. So that's why I got in touch with Carina initially about this. And then I found out that she's also doing so much work with organisations to help mothers who are returning to the workplace. She's also a stylist, she's a qualified life purpose coach. So if you're feeling a bit lost in any aspect of your life, she is your girl. We also got chatting though about what it is to actually be a coach, if you were wondering if that's a good career path for you. So let's just get straight into it. Carina, thank you for joining the podcast today. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. Can you kick things off by giving an introduction to my listeners?
So my name is Carina and I'm a personal identity coach. So I set up the coaching business. Well, actually, it's been a work in progress over the last, I'd say, 18 months. And it's kind of been a coaching program that's been in almost evolution as my thoughts have kind of evolved around the topic. But I went live with the business this year. So I kind of launched the business back in January. I actually come from a corporate career of about 15, maybe longer than that, actually, longer than I care to admit, but 15 or so years. And I started my career in recruitment and in sales. And then I moved into HR. So I worked for a big bank in the UK. And this is where I started to develop a lot of my in-house coaching skills. I worked in a number of different HR roles, some kind of project-led, lots to do with talent and things like that. And then I moved to Dubai and I worked in a couple of corporate roles here. And I think, I don't know, like a lot of corporate jobs here can be just quite different to how they are in the UK. And I found that a lot of the work that I was doing was a lot less strategic than it was back in the UK. Like I used to have quite complex roles. I'd be working on multiple global projects across, quite a large organization, or very large organization, I should say. So yeah, so it was quite different in contrast. And so this is kind of what led me to think at some point I definitely want to develop the coaching business. I did. So I started to do like a lot of self-development over the years as well, whilst I was trying to kind of figure all of this out. One of the certifications that I took through my coaching education, I guess, was a life purpose coaching course. So this was what really helped me to kind of delve back into a lot of other things that were almost like, I guess, kind of like untapped passions that I'd had as a child that I hadn't really explored. For one reason or another, we get taken down all of these different kind of paths. And so one of the things that I always knew, but kind of, I guess this helped me to drill into a little bit more, was the fact that I was very interested in fashion and styling and always had been. So this is when I started to retrain as a stylist, and I left my corporate job about 2 years ago. And I started to work as a stylist for just a short time. I guess when I went to work as a stylist, I always had in the back of my mind, was I going to build out a coaching business that was therefore going to be related to kind of style and image? So I was always working on these ideas. And something that helped me to realize is that I would often be working with people who'd kind of gone through some kind of change, and a lot of them were new mums as well, dealing with the different changes in body shape, but also dealing with the different changes in identity and not really knowing how to style themselves anymore for so many different reasons. So I was like, okay, I feel like there's more to it with regards to the identity piece. And I guess what also happened as well at that time is, in parallel, I started to explore my own journey. And again, the life purpose certification that I took helped me to be able to do that. And I started to look back at my life and piece it all together and think, actually, I've been through a number of different significant changes. I've been through a divorce, I've been through a relocation, I've been through quite a lot as a child as well. And so all of these different things had kind of thrown my identity into question. And then I'd had to somehow rediscover myself again. I'm also an NLP coach as well. So I use a lot of NLP tools within my neuro-linguistic programming. So it's a methodology of coaching, basically, but there's a number of different tools such as like visualization, reframing, things like that, which we can get onto. We can talk maybe about some, I guess, like case studies and things like that. But so these were things that I started to build into this overall coaching program and think actually there's a lot more to it. And that helped me to kind of really shape the whole idea around the personal identity coaching.
Amazing. And this is why I wanted to speak to you, because I've never come across someone that has such a holistic approach, going from NLP, which sounds like quite, is it psychology based? I don't know, to do with the brain, literally styling and fashion and how that impacts you. I know styling and fashion is such a small part of what you do, but it is really important as a mum, because I was so excited to fit back into my old clothes. And then I started breastfeeding. And so I still haven't worn half my dresses because I need to whack a bap out so often. And now this far on, it's all out of style anyway. And I need to move on. And I'm not like wanting to wear those clothes. It's a huge part of identity, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think the obvious thing that a lot of women will think about is the change in body shape, which is, it's true. A lot of women will change in body shape, and whether that's temporarily or long term. But I guess that becomes almost like the key concern, because it's the physical side of things. And, we often care a lot about what we look like. But, there is actually a much bigger part to it as well. And that's the psychological change shift that you go through. And the thing that I always tell clients is, you're not a different person, because a lot of people come to me as well and they have this kind of preconceived idea that whether you become a mum, whether you go through a breakup or, whatever the change is, whatever the shift is, that you've become this different person and therefore you've got to figure it all out. And it's not that. You will still be that same person, but you've evolved. And so it's actually very positive. And this is where some of the NLP tools come in, such as reframing and building that confidence. And we also do a lot of work around limiting beliefs as well within NLP. So, sometimes we'll build up this belief that, suddenly we've become a different person. We've lost all of the powers and the strengths and the skills that we had before, but they're actually all still there. It's just a case of actually you've grown all the more because you've gone through this experience and you've come through the other side, and there's an awful lot more that you've therefore developed and learned about yourself along the way as well.
Yeah, it's a much more positive thing. My first guest was Nikki, who the Scottish Soul Sister. And the one thing I always remember from that episode is her hatred for bounce back culture, bouncing back to your pre-baby weight, bouncing back to who you were before. They're just saying, you don't have to bounce backwards. Let's go forwards. Let's take on your new role, your new persona, what you liked about the person you were before. Also, you can totally change. And I love that. That's why I think coaching is so useful, because when you're in the midst of postpartum, it's really hard to have clear thoughts at all. You're probably really tired, and to actually figure out who this new person is, it's really difficult. So what are the common sort of challenges that you come across for the new mums, and how can you work with them to overcome whatever challenges or problems they're facing?
So one of the things that we've obviously just talked about is the fact that I think women feel like they have to try to go back to who they are, and that just simply isn't the case. That it's good. There's two things. You either feel like you're trying to go back to who you are, or it's almost like the complete opposite. Well, now I'm a mum, I'm entirely different. And I used to get this actually as a stylist as well, in the sense that people would come to me and they'd be like, well, now I'm a mum, so now I need to dress like a mum, but I don't want to dress too mumsy so that I end up dressing like my mum. And it's like, well, there's not, it doesn't have to be like that, you know. It can be that you are dressing as you, and it's a case of remembering who you were. And yeah, of course, you're not necessarily going to dress like 25-year-old you, but you know, there's going to be elements of your style that you pull through. So I don't know, for example, if you were always a boho girl, you know, there's a way of incorporating that into the rest of your style going forwards as well. And it's also about, you know, thinking about lifestyle, because your lifestyle changes. So what's going to work for you in general, to suit your lifestyle, and how it's kind of adapted, like what you said as well, right, with the kind of, you know, having to get your back out and stuff like that. And a lot of the dresses that you had before wouldn't necessarily suit that. I think in terms of the psychological piece, I think a common thing that I actually see with women is that it's almost like having mum guilt, you know, like having to dedicate time to yourself almost feels like overindulgent. It feels like it's selfish. You know, you're taking care of this additional little human, and there's a lot with regards to you that you've gone through and that you've changed. But I think women, we don't want to acknowledge that. We just want to kind of, you know, be the best mums that we can be. But actually, we do need to acknowledge that, because that's going to help us to be the best mums that we can be. So, you know, working through some of those changes and making sure that we are comfortable with ourselves, you know, like that has to feature into it. So I think, yeah, those are the two biggest things I see with new mums, for sure.
What fascinates me is your life purpose coaching, and how you've mentioned to me before how you look back at what people were interested in as a child as well. Like, I haven't even thought of that. Has it thrown up some surprising things for you or for other people you've worked with?
Yeah, I think it's not normally surprising, because it's not like you often suppress these things, but I think that there are just things where you look at them and you think, oh yeah, no, actually that is a big passion, and it was something that I was really interested in. And it could be as simple as, like, you know, I don't know, I'm trying to take an example. If I take my own example, you know, the fashion and the style, and if anyone's known me for a long period of time, they'll always go, yeah, you've always been into your clothes, you've always been into your style. But it's just the fact that you don't really do anything with it. And I think sometimes we compartmentalize these things as well. So there's definitely a tendency to look at certain things that you were interested in as a child, and because it was when you were a child, it's almost like a plaything. So therefore, it's acceptable to still be interested in that as an adult, but only as a kind of hobby, and not necessarily think, well, could I do something seriously with this? Could this be a business idea? I think sometimes the two things get a bit muddied. And so therefore, we don't really think that that's a possibility, whereas it absolutely is. So yeah, I think it's not necessarily a surprise. I think it's maybe a surprise at the thought that, oh, okay, yeah, I could actually transfer something that I actually enjoy and something that I like into something that makes me money as well, you know?
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head, because we think of things that we do in our childhood or things that we enjoy. We probably don't have time for it anymore, or it's childish. We don't think that we can bring that into our career, because we've been taught that we need to just go and get a specific job, really. And we have to just decide that we're going to do this career path, and not that we can pivot and go and have a look at something that we enjoyed beforehand. I mean, I loved writing in primary school, and then the love of writing goes, doesn't it, in secondary school and university and all of that, because you're writing stuff you don't care about. And recently, even just at the start, when I'd write down all my ideas for like podcast episodes or blog posts, I suddenly realized, like, I haven't written anything for fun for half my life. And I've sort of been able to get that back and incorporate it. And somehow it's not a major thing, a major part of what I do, but I've actually really enjoyed incorporating it back into my business.
Yeah. And I think that's the great thing about when you're managing your own business as well, is that you can actually be really creative with it as well. And similarly to you, I've always enjoyed writing. But I think of that as something that I used to do as a kid. But then I used to enjoy writing in my corporate job as well. The difference is that I didn't always get to write particularly creatively. Like I'd be writing a lot of policy or legal documents and things like that. So my creative side was kind of, I wasn't allowed to kind of that express or able to express it really. But yeah, I've done something similar as well, in the sense that I've just approached like certain magazines and publications, and I've, have the privilege of being able to write for them as well. And it's so nice just being able to kind of explore that. But I think, that's definitely one of the benefits that you get as an entrepreneur. You can you can make it what you want, basically, to suit you.
You absolutely can. Would you say you need to have a particular personality type or skill set to become a coach?
Oh, it's not necessarily a personality type, but it's definitely a skill. You need to be a very, very good listener. It's good to be intuitive as a coach, but the hardest thing in actual fact is sometimes you believe you understand what's going on with a client. So you're kind of listening to a client and they're talking to you about a number of things, but it's not really your job to insert your opinion as to what might be going on. So having that level of intuition, that almost being able to sit on it. So I think another skill would be patience as well, and being a good listener, but also being very, very patient as well, because the whole idea of coaching really is for the client to actually come to their own conclusions about what it is that, potentially they need to work on, or, what direction they need to take certain things in. So, I think that's not really a personality type, but it's definitely skills that I think we would naturally possess.
And I absolutely could not do that, because I am fixed. And if you come to me with a problem, I'd be like, do this, this and this. I'll connect you with that person. Like, I will not sit there and listen. So I think that is really important to say.
It's quite interesting, because I can be like that as well, obviously, when I'm not coaching, but I probably do. Yeah, that's really interesting. So maybe it's something that I actually work harder on than I kind of understand. So it's quite interesting.
It's something actually that I didn't realize about coaching as well, because I didn't realize that you're trying to get the person to come up with their own, because otherwise you would just be molding someone into a different person. You're not going to be finding their life purpose if you're trying to tell them who they should be.
Yeah. Everything about coaching should really come from the individual. You're there to listen to them, steer them in the different directions if needed, open their minds up to certain things that they wouldn't necessarily have considered. So a lot of the things I will always say to a client is, I am going to challenge you on certain things, because in order to see any kind of change, you have to do things differently. And in order to do things differently, you have to think differently, because all of our actions, all of our behaviors come from our beliefs and everything that is intrinsic within us. So my job really is to challenge that thinking, so that we can then challenge the behavior, or not challenge the behaviors, but we can work with implementing different behaviors to see what actually works for that individual. It has to come from within that person.
Is a lot of what you do to do with confidence as well, and building people's confidence back up? Is that like the core of what you do, I imagine, especially with the mums?
Yeah. So I think if I was to describe personal identity coaching very simply, it's helping people to understand who they are at the very core, but being very confident in that, so that they can then take that forward very assertively and apply that to every single area of their lives. So they can show up as a mum very authentically. They can show up as go into the workplace and show up authentically as themselves, but also being able to, I guess, build the life that you want as well. So when we know ourselves and we are very confident in who we are, we can then start to assertively say, like, this is what I need in life, or these are the goals I want to work to. These are the objectives I want to work to. So there's a number of components that I work with my clients around. And first of all, yes, it's breaking down any kind of limiting beliefs, first of all, building up that understanding of what's really important to them. So what are their values? What are their priorities? But also making sure that they understand the importance of those things. And something I said to you the other day, do you remember, I think I said this at the event that we were at, is, our values are positive statements that we put out to the world as well, and they drive our boundaries. So it's really important to have that thorough understanding of that. And when we have that understanding, we can start to be very confident in ourselves. So that's how you build that kind of confidence. And then you can go out and you can really kind of design the life that you want to lead, essentially.
Has this helped people start businesses as well? Because when we were at this event, and it was a careers club for mums, and I spoke to a few mums who just did not know where to start because they didn't know what they wanted or what kind of business they wanted to build.
Yeah.
Can it help with that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think, for a new mum, there's a lot going on there, because, you have to, first of all, work with your own identity and, figure out exactly how that's evolved. But then from there, you can start to figure out, well, what are the skills, what are the resources that I bring with me? But also, what are the things that I'm interested in? What are the passions that I have? Like we said, the things that haven't been explored previously. Maybe there's passions that they've worked with before and it hasn't quite worked out. So I was working with somebody who was very interested in becoming a nutritional coach. And now she's going back round to that idea. She'd actually studied previously. And now she's kind of coming back round to that idea, because actually it's been a passion, but it's sort of been played around with, but not really fully explored. And so sometimes I think that we do certain things even through our adulthood and we think, well, yeah, we learned that, we tried that. But sometimes you go back to it and you think, well, I didn't really try it. I didn't really give it my all. So, there's certain things that we can also work through that have even come through adult life as well.
And I bet some of the limiting beliefs kick in there as well. If you've tried something before and it hasn't worked out, or something has been said or something has gone wrong, then you probably have to realise, I'm just guessing, but that people realise that that's actually not the be all and end all, and that you can give it another shot.
Yeah, and that's exactly so. Limiting beliefs usually stem from an experience or even something that somebody has said to us, and we don't even realise that it's registered as much as it has. And then it does, and we lock it in, and it's there, and you can't get rid of it until you start to acknowledge it. But that's also quite a difficult process sometimes, because it's going back to trying to find something that we're not even aware of has had that level of impact. So it really is a case of exploring and really delving. And so this is how, when I'm working with an individual, it's like, right, okay, so we have a limiting belief around this scenario. Now we have to explore all of the different events and try to uncover exactly what was it that has happened at that time. Once we find the reason for it, the trigger for it, then we can start to work on things like reframing, so that we can, and also the other thing as well is that a belief is usually formed out of an opinion or something that isn't actually a fact. So if we can then shine a light on it and we can actually observe the facts surrounding it, we can then disprove the fact that that belief shouldn't even exist in the first place. So that's sort of the method to going back and uncovering that.
How do you actually work with people? Is it in person, or do you do?
So, okay. Well, yes, virtually and in person. So, so I do both. And then I also run different group workshops as well. So I tailor different workshops around different topics. So I do workshops around like core identity, but then also workshops going into corporates, talking about workplace identity, how to balance the two, talking to new mums as well, returning to the workplace. There's lots of, and then relocation as well, style identity.
Let's talk about the returning to the workplace, because you're working with some good organisations, aren't you? And I think you've got some good resources for those mums who are currently really worrying about their return to work. So tell me about a few of those organisations and what you're doing.
So I think the topic of return to work, there's still, like I said to you the other day, right, there's a lot of work that needs to be done for sure. But the good thing is that there are a number of people who are really interested in supporting this initiative. And so one of the organisations that I'm working with now is the British Chamber of Commerce. So we are going to be, or I'm helping to facilitate an event in a couple of weeks' time. So the idea was really born out of a group of women. And we all come from different sort of levels of expertise, I guess, that would transfer to the topic. So obviously I'm a coach, there's a couple of other coaches there, there's a few people from recruitment and so on. And so we're going to be running a speed networking event. So the whole idea is that there's going to be women who come along who are looking to return to the workplace. Potentially they're unsure as to how to go about it, or, maybe they've had a couple of situations where, they've been a little bit burnt, something like that. And then we are vetting organisations so that we understand that the organisations who come to talk to these women are going to be companies that are really, really serious about providing that kind of supportive but also flexible environment. Mm-hmm. And the whole idea is that it's speed dating. So everyone spends, 5-10 minutes talking to different people and then they move on, essentially. So, and we chose speed dating because we felt like it would be a less intimidating environment as well. Because I think it's great sometimes when you have these big events where you have like panels and stuff like that, but you still have to put yourself out there and actually, put your hand up and ask the question, which not everybody feels comfortable doing. So this really gives the chance for everybody to meet people on a one-to-one basis and just have very exploratory conversations. So that's one thing. That's on the 22nd of May. And then I'm also working with an organisation called Beyond Careers. So I'm going to be working with them on an event next month. I think it's the 6th of June. Yes, 6th of June. And they're also going to be running a series of workshops. So I'm going to be putting on a workshop for them. So, so there's lots of different things going on. I think there's a lot of support for the topic out there.
You just have to know where to look, don't you? Will you send me all the links to this so I can put them in the show notes and then people can click through?
Yeah, and I think I've definitely put the British Chamber of Commerce event on my LinkedIn, but that's another place that people can look if they want to go onto my LinkedIn, any events like that. And there's a couple of other things like irons in the fire around that. Whether they happen this side of summer, I'm not sure, because I can't believe where this year is going already. But so there'll be a few other bits and pieces as well that emerge, I'm sure.
Okay, perfect. I think there's probably going to be 3 types of mums that are listening at the moment. There's going to be the mums who want to work with you, the mums who are scared about their return to work, and there's going to be the mums who are thinking, oh, maybe I can do a career like that, or are thinking of starting their own business. What have been the challenges, or maybe the surprising challenges since January with starting your own business?
For me personally, it's probably finding enough time to work on all the different things that I want to work on with regards to the business. And that is in part the problem itself, which is not having enough hours in the day, but then also probably a mindset thing as well. And so this is something that I know about me, is that I want to do everything all at once and I can be quite impatient. So definitely trying to manage yourself through that. If you are that kind of person, it's not necessarily a bad thing to have in business at all, but it's quite hard to manage yourself. You need to find ways in which you can manage yourself. Manifestation is actually bizarrely something that might sound like an odd thing to say, but manifestation has actually helped me with that. Because just applying that kind of very open-minded outlook on it as well. And the fact that, the universe will bring to you what's meant to come along at the right time and things like that, that's actually really helped me with that. I know people think of manifestation as being very goal-driven. You set your sights on something and then you work towards it, which is absolutely true. But it's also a little bit about, being open to the universe. I think the thing that I would say to mums is to design a business that's going to suit you as well, because you could spend all of the hours in a day on a business, as I'm sure you know this, right? So it's trying to design that business so that it fits around your lifestyle as well and fits around you being a mum first and foremost, because that can prove to be quite challenging. So that's definitely, I think, been the biggest thing for me so far this year.
Yeah, I would agree. And remembering why you're doing the business, because
Yeah.
I've had my times where I'm like, I have to do this email right now. And Bonnie's trying to shove a book in my face. And I'm like, actually, no,
Yeah.
the reason I quit my job was so I can read this book to Bonnie, not so that I can be glued to my phone doing emails. So
Yeah.
it's an important one to remember. But I
Yeah.
definitely have the same mindset as you, where I can see all the holes in my business and I really want to implement all the ideas that I have. But
Yeah.
someone reminded me that the people that are, following my business online or whatever it might be, they don't know all those things that you want to implement. Other people can't see all the holes that you feel like you can see.
Absolutely. Yeah. And sometimes you might see a hole in something that isn't really such a terrible thing, and then because there's also things that sometimes I look at and I go, oh, I really want to do that. And I keep thinking that I'm going to do that. And actually, then a couple of months later, I'm like, my thinking's evolved around that so much that I'm quite glad that I didn't have the chance to begin working on that. So sometimes I think we can beat ourselves up about the things that we feel like we should have been doing. But then, yeah, I've looked at certain things and I think, actually, that's not such a bad thing. Or sometimes that hole that you perceive it to be has sort of sorted itself out because your business has changed somewhat. It's moved in a slightly different direction. So yeah, this is what I mean about the whole being quite open-minded and learning not to beat yourself up about those kind of things, because if you haven't had chance to work on it, there's probably a reason you haven't. And just, if you get a chance to, then it will be the right time to work on that as well. So
yeah, I totally agree, because a huge part of my business plan, I don't know, for some reason I never put into action, and it was all like a bit too much work and I just didn't have time. But it was this huge part of my business plan at the start. And so
yeah.
people who I had told about it were asking me about it. And then about a month, 2 months later, another business launched doing that exact thing. And I messaged them because I was like, oh my God, yes, this is why I never got around to doing it. Like, this is definitely for you. This is not for me. And you can do this so much better. So it's really true that it can be quite difficult in the moment. But yeah, I guess that's where manifestation comes in. Is it something you talk about with your clients, manifestation?
Yeah, it is. I've actually written a guide on it recently. So I need to release it soon, because the other thing that, so I implement NLP tools within the manifestation guide that I've written. So, it's about, first of all, positioning yourself in the right mindset. So we choose what it is that we believe that we want to manifest. So that's the first thing. Then we need to remove any kind of limiting beliefs, because, so I'll give you an example. So I worked with a client who wanted to put herself forward for a promotion, and which is great. And she really backed herself solidly in terms of doing all of the things that she was meant to do to put herself forward for this promotion. But the more we talked around it, we uncovered the fact that she didn't believe that she deserved the promotion for various different things. So if you don't believe that you deserve that promotion, then actually you're doing all of the right things, maybe physically and showing up and doing certain things, but you're probably going to hold yourself back somewhere along the line. So it's really important to strip back those limiting beliefs and just try to identify what they are so that you can work around reframing them. Visualization is a big part of it as well. So visualization, actually thinking about, what it is that you want to achieve, how's it going to look, how's it going to feel. But then also I talk a lot about having the mindset of the fact that the universe will in fact know what's better for you. And so you might not have it quite right. So if things don't play out in exactly the same way that you envisage them doing, then it's okay. Just kind of go with it. Because I think I've always been someone that's been very goal driven. So this is actually a part of my own personal self-discovery. I would be so goal driven that I would map out every single incremental goal that would lead up to the overall overarching objective. And I would beat myself up if one tiny thing didn't go to plan. I think the whole thing was going to fall apart, and I'd really beat myself up on that. But you can't possibly control all of the different elements. So you can have a rough guide as to how you're going to get somewhere, but you've also got to be open-minded to the fact that things shift and things change and things might evolve slightly differently. And you've got to be flexible to that thinking around change as well. So Yeah, I talk about various different things within that guide, and to my clients as well.
Has your belief in it ever been challenged? Because I feel like I definitely see the value in manifestation, and I've implemented it in different ways in my life, and I can see how that's worked. And actually, I find it funny when you're talking about how things can go off track. 'Cause I feel like that's so true with Bonnie. Like, I always, for some reason, said I would want a baby when I'm 30 and I don't want to leave it much later. And then we had a conversation. I'd written my goals for the year and it was totally nothing to do with having a baby. And me and Rich actually had a conversation to say, let's put that off for a few years. And then the universe brought me a baby literally at 30 years old. Obviously, I didn't tick off most of the goals that were on my list for that year, but it's all worked perfectly. But at this point, I am having a bit of a confidence crisis in it because it's not working out the way I thought it would in lots of other goals that I'm trying to manifest and work on now. So I wonder if you've ever had like a confidence crisis with it, or wondered if it's actually working.
I don't know if I've ever had a confidence crisis with manifestation. I don't think so. For me, I always used to be a very spiritual person, and then I got into my 20s and I became this very hardened person, or certainly on the exterior, and so I shut away a lot of my beliefs as well. And a lot of that was probably due to various different things that happened through my childhood. And so it was only really in the last 5 years that I've become aware of the fact that I am quite attuned to some of these topics. And then I've done a lot more, self-educating and stuff like that around, manifestation and other things. So I guess, I don't know if I've ever had that's not really a confidence failure with that. I think that's just me shutting things away. But the other thing that I can see when I look back through my life is that I probably manifested the wrong things because I was very gung-ho about what I believed that I needed. And so I shut that connectivity off around the fact that, yes, there's an element. I don't think I ever wanted to believe that life happens to you. And I don't think life happens to you as such. But I was so opposed to that. And I had to drive my own agenda and drive my own life forward and really take control of things that I think I probably ignored signs, red flags, when things maybe weren't right for me. And I was like, do you know what? This is going to be right. This is going to happen, And I can say that now because I can look back on certain things and go, what was I thinking? Why did I drive that down so hard when that situation or that thing wasn't right for me? So it's not a confidence as such, but it's probably the reverse of that. But because I probably shut away the fact that I was quite attuned to these things for such a long period of time.
Yeah, that's a huge part of it, actually, isn't it? And when you're so focused on something, it's really hard in the moment to see a red flag for what it is.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will have various different scenarios. I've spoken to lots of different people who've, when they analyze a certain thing, that they can break it down and think, well, actually, maybe this isn't quite the right thing. But again, I think sometimes you need somebody sat opposite you and helping you to uncover that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So on that, how can people reach you and get in touch?
Yeah. So I guess people can follow me on my Instagram, which is Carina Harvey Official. I'm available on LinkedIn. All of my contact details are on my website as well, which is carinaharvey.com. I also have a podcast as well called All Things Identity, where I am sharing basically stories of people who've kind of gone through some kind of either challenge or change. It could be, quite a shocking, disturbing change that they've been through. It could be something more positive, but really helping to share various different stories and journeys as to how people have gone through their own kind of identity crisis, but then how they've recovered that and how they've rediscovered themselves, so that we can share messages of hope and inspiration going to people going through so many different things. So that's another way if people want to follow the podcast as well.
It's a really unique podcast. I'm really excited to listen to episodes. I want to listen to it in the car when I can actually properly listen and when I'm not going to be interrupted. So I love it.
Oh, good.
Thank you so much for coming and speaking to us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on, Emma.
Thank you again to Carina for coming on the podcast. I personally found that so interesting, and we actually ended up chatting for so much longer after the podcast. I'll put all the links in the show notes for you because she mentioned some really good resources, didn't she? Before you go, can I ask for a favour? If you enjoyed this podcast, please press follow on whatever platform you're listening to this right now. It really helps me to continue creating. And even better, if you have a friend in mind who you think might like this, please send them a little link and I'm sure they will enjoy it. Anyway, thank you for listening, and till the next episode, take care.